If we've got some new families on who I haven't had the chance to meet yet in person, just to introduce myself, I'm Benny Caffrey. It's the start of my 4th year at the Pine School and my 21st year in independent school education. It's such a pleasure to be here with your students every day. I couldn't be happier than I am here at the Pine School. So again, thanks for joining us this evening. I'm going to go through and just hit some highlights and some points of interest about the upper school. I'm also going to take a big breath because I don't have another meeting starting in half an hour. So I'll try and speak at a more reasonable pace this evening. All right, great. So I'll just begin by saying that this 2020-21 school year, it's a school year like no other. And really, the spring was incredibly unusual for us. I would offer that, it continues to be truly unique, even as we re-engage with classes here in fall 2020. Upper school students came to our campus or logged into Pine at Home on Tuesday, August 18th. And I'll just thank you for your patience, letting us welcome groups of students back to campus slowly. It really helped us develop a more thoughtful approach to how we could help students follow new policies and procedures and support a public health. And, it gave, I think, all of us here on the staff much more confidence in what we were doing. We are just now through a full rotation. So I don't know if you're very tuned in to the Pine School middle and upper school schedule, but we do a 7-day rotation here. Students came back on a day 5, and we just now today are back to a day 5. So, we're learning through time and getting used to being here on campus with each other, connecting with students through Pine at Home, doing both of those things simultaneously, and living into a new normal. For students who are here with us and are returning students, I'm sure they've been saying, oh, just, so much is different. Everything is just so different. Lunch is not the same. Community meeting doesn't happen the way we want it to. Our music classes are weird. Even car line is bizarre. We've got to wear masks to school. Our classrooms are set up differently. I mean, there's a lot about it that feels unfamiliar and just doesn't feel like the way we would all love to be doing school. That's the reality of it. I want to give incredible kudos to your children. They've had great attitudes. I would say, their willingness to be compliant and to follow directions and to, humor us when we tell them to walk on the right side of the hallway or, go around the upper stairwell like a rotary. I mean, they're taking it all in stride. They're standing, a healthy distance apart as they wait to go through the cafeteria line. They're just being really patient and they're just being really understanding. So thank you for that. I know that in part that happens because of, you're reinforcing those behaviors at home. All right. So, as much as we were experiencing things really differently this year, I would also offer that, there's a lot that does feel the same. And it's great to know that a lot about what is a core part of the Pine School's identity, it remains consistent. I know our faculty are connecting with students. I know students are here receiving great care and attention, and that we're still day to day focused on academics and character development. So even though lunch looks really different, there's a lot about school that is definitely, it's definitely the same. It still feels like the Pine School. So in the upper school, this is a little reminder for returning families, definitely a crash course for those of you new to the Pine School for the first time. You might be wondering, who can help me? I feel like, this is kind of unwieldy and I'm not able just to walk onto campus and go see someone in person. So this is just a great list of who in the upper school you could call on if you had a question or concern. First of all, I would offer Kelly Hilton Green as the assistant head of school. He's a great help to me and a great person to support our upper school students. He oversees what they're doing outside of the classroom, so takes the lead on student life for our upper school students. Sean Carlson is our academic dean, and in the upper school manages what happens in the classroom or academic counseling wise for students. Teresa Hampton, who has been with us at the Pine School for a number of years, happily and graciously moved into a new role for us this year. She is our school registrar and also our student life coordinator. And I just love seeing Teresa work in that role this year. If you or your students have technology questions, I would direct you to either Paul Needham or Jorge Salas. They're both wonderful resources. Heidi Kay is on hand to offer emotional and social support to students. And it is a little odd to come back to school amidst what we're navigating in our world. So if you've got concerns, if your student's a little anxious, definitely know that Heidi's here to help. Cassie Carling is our upper school learning specialist. Matt Sofrelli is our athletic director. Excuse me, I've been talking for over an hour. And then also I would say, please feel free to reach out to your child's advisor or classroom teachers. If you've ever got a question or issue, going right to the source is often the most helpful thing you can do. With all of these people here to help you, but still, not having that connection to campus, I know that probably many of you are saying, well, what can I do to stay connected? I miss coming to campus for back to school night, and I wanted to go to that parent reception at the start of the year, and I wanted to go to opening assembly. And it is a bummer that we're not able to gather on this campus. So what I would offer is to please reach out anytime. Even if we can't be together, hearing from each other, it just makes a huge difference. So send a quick email and find a time to talk on the phone. Maybe have a meet gathering like this if there's a group of people who need to come together. You will also get communication coming to you from the school. So look for grade level parent communication. We've got one parent who volunteers at each grade to sort of pull together announcements for the week that are relevant to parents and send that out. And then you will also see a weekly nightly news on Sunday evening. That will have important dates coming up, important announcements, and then usually one or two interesting program highlights. Robert Ankrum, our Director of Communication, sends that out. I definitely encourage you to take a look at it on Sunday evenings. You will not in the upper school get as much communication from the school as you might have gotten used to in the lower or middle school. There is a deliberate shift in the upper school to start communicating with students. So we're really trying to build that personal responsibility and accountability in our upper schoolers. And so just know that if you really want to know what's going on, you might want to sit beside your student and look at their email. I'm kind of kidding, but kind of not. The other thing that I would love to throw out there to you all is that our Parents Association always welcomes volunteers. By default, you were all members of our Parents Association, and we routinely look for parent volunteers to help out on campus. We're not welcoming as many visitors to campus right now, but I hope through time we will start to expand that a little bit. Kelly Hilton Green is our main administrative liaison to the Parents Association, and so he would be a great person to email if you would like to volunteer and get involved in the Parents Association. The last thing I will say here about staying connected is really a challenge to give to you. I know that we've got new families at the Pine School who would love to get to know returning families and other new families and just get connected. And so that's a little bit on you because we're not able to pull big groups of parents onto campus and have those regular social touch points that we're used to having. And so if you're able, to reach out or to get to know someone, it would be really awesome. I know that new families are eager to know, is there someone who lives in my neighborhood? Is there, a student that we might feel comfortable meeting at the beach or something? So definitely more so than ever in another year, this is a great year to make sure that families are feeling included at school. The other last little plug here for how you can stay connected would be to follow us on social media and to check out our Flickr account. So even if you're not a big Facebooker, just following the Pine School on Facebook or joining the parents' Facebook page will help you get some regular reminders. As an example, these evening chats tonight were announced as events through Facebook, and so that would have been a way to get a reminder, just another one besides the emails coming from me. And then on Flickr, you will just see thousands of pictures collected there. Robert Ankrum, our communications director, takes wonderful pictures and does an excellent job of curating them and posting them for families to enjoy. So even though you're not able to be here, you could perhaps go to that Flickr page, that Flickr account, and take a tour through some really awesome stuff that's happening on campus. And I'm going to call out one of these pictures here. If you can see this young man here, Cade Crook, he is outside. We have a brand new course running this year on the Florida ecology and history. So really trying to take advantage of what's happening or what we can teach our students by virtue of our location here on our campus and in South Florida. So really cool to see us getting kids outside. All right, now on to the slightly heavier stuff. I want to speak with you all tonight about health and wellness, family cooperation we're expecting, and also some of our policies and procedures, just to clarify, our approach to health and wellness on campus. So the first thing I will remind you is that you should be doing a daily health screening with your children before you put them on the bus or send them to school. I know that this is not new news to you. I'm also sure that it's not the first time you've heard someone say, don't send your sick children to school. That's always been the case, even before COVID-19. If children are not well, it is really, really best to keep them at home anytime, and even more so now. I think with the heightened sensitivity in our community, a sore throat, a bad cough, we can't just dismiss it as a cold. And that's something that we all need to take responsibility for. I would offer to you that if someone in the family is suspected to have COVID and COVID-19 is waiting for a test result, everyone needs to wait at home and no one should be coming to school. And then finally, if you do have a positive COVID-19 test result in your family, I would just, I need you to tell the school right away. You can call me or you can call the school nurse. We will absolutely respect your confidentiality. But if we have a situation that would necessitate taking immediate steps to quarantine any population on this campus, we want to do that right away. And the reality of it is that we're going to hear that news from families more quickly than we're going to hear it from the health department. So just know that I'm counting on your cooperation. You can count on my immediate action, and you can count on us remaining confidential. Okay. We are fortunate that we have not had to act on that on a positive case in our community or on our campus yet this year. I hope it stays that way. But if it doesn't, we'll take it as it comes, and we will, do the quarantining that we need to. I want to offer to you that we have a great partnership with the Martin County Health Department. They are really offering some wonderful support to us as a school. It might be in no part because we have a Pine School parent who works there, but even aside from that, there is a dedicated nurse on staff to support private schools in Martin County. So our school nurse feels so great that she can email or pick up the phone and get an answer relatively quickly if she's got anything, of concern or that she's got a question about. Through our work with them, it's been interesting to learn more about what data is truly meaningful in making public health decisions. And what I've come to understand is that the local health department pays a lot of attention to the positivity rate for tests coming back. So if you think, all right, people who are suspected to have COVID-19 go and take a test, what percentage of those suspected to have COVID-19 actually do? And the goal is that less than 10% of the tests would come back positive. We could have a long statistical conversation about who you test and why you test them and how many tests you offer. But as we look to sort through all of this data and information coming at us, it does stand to reason that if you're testing people who might be positive and you've got fewer of those tests coming back positive, it makes it a little bit more reassuring to think that, okay, so these symptoms, these things that we know maybe indicate COVID-19, well, then maybe more often now, it doesn't necessarily mean that person has COVID-19. So as that positivity rate has fallen, it has caused the health department to change their recommended protocol. And so what I want to do now is show you that health screening sheet that we're using now, really as of today. This is hot off the press. And, it gives me a lot of confidence to know we've got great health advice coming to us as a school. So let me quickly get this up for you. So this is the Pine Schools health screening guide, along with a little bit of a decision tree down below. I'll make sure that this is available to you on our reopening blog and also send out a link to you. But the first part of it is going to look like what you've seen all along. The health department has distilled down the symptoms a little bit more to reflect, I think, what we see in pediatrics. So these are the yes, no questions you should be running through mentally before you send your child to school, either bringing them or putting them on the bus. So if your child maybe answers yes to one or two of these symptoms, then your student should stay home, as should any sick child, even if they've got symptoms not on this list. They should stay home. But once they're symptom free for at least 24 hours and don't have a fever without fever reducing medication, it would be okay for them to come back. We always recommend that you seek medical advice. So I think in this current climate, taking your child to the doctor, making sure that their medical provider's not recommending a COVID test, that's probably something you would want to do in an abundance of caution. While they're away from school, if your child feels well enough, we are happy to accommodate them through Pine at Home. They could join some of our other students attending in that way. The big difference here, though, is if you've got a child who has some symptoms on this list, who has been around someone with COVID-19, maybe someone in your community, then you are going to need them to go into a period of quarantine. So that period of quarantine is going to last for 14 days. And interestingly, you don't take a negative COVID test and leave that period of quarantine. So if you've got a child who's had exposure to a positive case and is symptomatic, they're going to need to stay at home through that period, even if they take a test and it's negative, okay? Because the virus could develop a little bit later on. I'm going to let this be a document that you can read and take a look at. If you've got questions, you're always welcome to follow up with our school nurse. You can call me too, and I'll do my best to answer your questions, but honestly might end up referring you to Candace. She is really great. And for those of you who don't know her, I will offer to you that she's incredibly thorough, and just so responsible. We're lucky to have her here in our community guiding us through at these current times. It's been great. So again, the big change here is that, we're not saying that symptoms initiate that period of quarantine or that symptoms would necessitate a sibling staying home if the sibling did not have symptoms. And it really has to do with the presumptive belief that symptoms indicate COVID-19. We're seeing less and less of that in our community, which is a good thing. If that rises again, this decision tree and the screening, it's going to change. So just know that it's an evolving situation and we're going to stay abreast of it. All right, let's get back to the presentation. Okay, all right. I'm finished with the health information. If you've got questions, I invite you to put them into the chat box. I'll take a look at that a little bit later, but let's go on to the, I guess what is a little bit more on the students' minds as they come to school here, and that would be the Pine School Lunch Program. So as I mentioned, there are lots of things about the Pine School that don't look the way that we would hope they would, and lunch is one of them. Flick has been a really, really awesome partner to us here in our dining services since this campus was founded, and it's really wonderful that we have a kitchen and dining hall here at the Pine School and can offer lunch as part of our program and tuition. We hear the feedback that food is being wasted and that students don't always like the options. I also hear from some of our very environmentally conscious faculty and students that they're frustrated with the amount of waste and garbage. We're looking to engage with some plastic recycling, but more onto the food, we are looking to make lunch a little bit better for students. We quickly got pasta back on the menu, heard you loud and clear with that one. And we're working with Flick on how we can offer more particular service to students where they could come up to the hotline and request what they would like to eat rather than having just a pre-served tray. I know our students don't want to take a bunch of food they're not going to eat. And I know if it's sitting out there, it's not as warm or fresh as students might like for it to be. So just know that we are looking to make that change. With so many things at school, and I've used this analogy 2 other times tonight, and I will probably continue to through the whole of the school year, I'm thinking about putting the gas on slowly. You know what I mean? So, when we first met with Flick this summer, it was all about how can we safely serve lunch to our students and faculty and staff, and now we're doing that. That's happening. And so now from that basis, we'll be able to improve the program and improve the offerings and improve the service and, putting the gas on a little bit more every day. It will, however, be some time before we can return to the self-serve food options I know students really enjoyed. It was awesome to make a panini or a salad or your own sandwich or have some soup, and that's just not, it's not a hygienic way to serve food given the current climate and times. So we will look to revamp the offerings, doing everything we can, and through time, hope to have our lunch program back to what we all hope it will be. So what's coming up in the upper school? We are slowly but surely putting the gas on, getting some of that student life, fun and activities back on board. So we had a community meeting earlier this week that was led by our head prefects. We have got an activity period tomorrow where all the prefects will introduce themselves to the upper school and invite them to get involved in those different committees. That's a really awesome way for students to jump right in. Clubs will be organized and begin in the next few weeks. We've got some clubs that are established and they're favorites. We also have the opportunity here for kids who have a new club they might want to start to do just that. We definitely welcome new ideas and student leadership in our clubs and in our prefect system. And then also we've got team practices underway. Matt Sofarelli and his team have done an awesome job of getting us back on the courts and back out on the cross-country courses and in the pools and on the golf courses. And we will see athletic events start to commence after Labor Day. So you can look forward to that for your Pine School athletes. After Labor Day, we will also have virtual back to school night videos to share with you all. And I hope you'll take the time to watch the great introductory videos that teachers are taking some time to put together for you over the next week or so. We really, really wish we could welcome you to campus. I gotta tell you, back to school night is one of my favorite events of the school year. It's so fun. It truly, truly is. Maybe we'll get to have one later on, but for now, we're gonna make some videos so at least you can put a face with a name and learn a little bit more about the goals teachers have in their courses this year. And then I would also say, as we get more comfortable and we get better at our new protocols, we will be able to return to some of our revamped traditions. It's a work in progress. I'm so proud for the way students have been compliant with wearing masks, with taking direction when nudged to create a little bit more space. But the reality of it is that it is not natural for people to stand 6 feet away from each other. And, we want to give kids mask breaks. Well, that means they need to walk outside and they need to be 6 feet away from each other and take their masks off. And it's just hard. It goes against nature. And I don't want kids to feel like they're in trouble. I don't want them to feel like they're being reprimanded, but it's going to take a little time and a little coaching and, frankly, constant vigilance on the part of my colleagues and I, to just do our best with this. We want to stay in school. That's what we want to do. And it's going to take, a big effort from everyone for that to happen. So that is what is on its way in the upper school. I'm going to take a little pause and turn over here to the chat board to see if we've had any questions come up. I'm going to look at my timing. Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's 7:27. So we made it through there pretty quickly. I'm going to pause to see if anyone wants to type a question in or even be brave and come off mute and ask it. And then I'm going to stop recording and just have the senior parents stay with me and Kelly Hilton Green for a little bit here. So any questions that would be applicable for the whole upper school?
I have a question.
Yes.
If someone was going to do your Pine at Home, if they were sick, how do they go about doing that?
Like to let teachers know that they're going to be attending online?
Correct.
Yep. So I would invite them to email their teachers and definitely Sean Carlson, our academic dean. And we want to be as accommodating as we can for students who are not feeling well and need to stay home. But, we want students to be teachers to be expecting students online. So love to give them a little heads up with that if we can. We have some teachers in particular sections who don't have any students attending from home. And so, wanting to give them a heads up so they can welcome kids would be great. I wouldn't want kids to just assume that the Google Meet is necessarily going to be open to them. we'll get better at that as we navigate kids, coming and going. And also, I appreciate there might be other really compelling reasons for students to, for a period of time, perhaps attend from home, and would love to work in support of that. But that's a great question. So definitely let Sean Carlson know. Email the teachers if you can. But Sean Carlson would be the main person to inform. Okay. So there's a question here. Will be informed if a student tests positive, not by name, of course. So what you would be informed of is if your child needed to quarantine. Okay. So we would share that with, with the affected people immediately. I think I'd have to really consider broadcasting that to the whole community, just because of privacy. I know that word would likely spread. I can tell you that if we got to a threshold, with several cases on campus, we would immediately be in touch with the Department of Health about whether or not a school closure was needed. And it would likely depend on the grades affected and the people affected. Yeah. Again, happy to say that we have not had to navigate those waters yet. Knock on wood. Okay. So if there's no link that you can do, decide not. Okay. Hold on. Let me read this really quickly. Find link. Not to go in person that day. I have to apologize. I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but on every Google Classroom, there's an assigned Google Meet. So if your child opens up their Google Classroom page for that particular course, there's a fixed Google Meet that should be open to them. And, typically teachers are prepared for kids to join through Pine at Home. We still have, many students who are choosing to attend in that way, although more coming back. Next week, September 2nd, will be our re-entry day. That's our next day one. And then we've got another date that Mr. Carlson's picked for later in September. But if your child is going to be new to Pine at Home, is homesick, it could be that they're just absent. I can imagine that some students might not be well or might have some family, events they've committed to that they could just not be at school. Absence definitely still exists. But again, happy to welcome them into Pine at Home if they're home due to, sickness or just a need to be there. And we'll work with the teachers to open up that Pine at Home link. But they should be attached to the Google Classroom that every course has. Okay. Other questions for the good of the group? And let me come off of my presentation here so I can see all your faces. All right, so I think we're all together and I've closed my slideshow. And again, just want to thank you all for joining this evening. Okay, one more question here. Can you enter back into the school prior to the reentry dates? I just would ask you to work with Mr. Carlson on that, because we do want to make sure that we're communicating well with teachers so they know what to expect. I would offer to you that it is truly not trivial for teachers to teach students who are at home and in class, and just helping them be prepared to do that would be great. I see another, let's see, will you be communicating to those who are traced back to the person who had tested positive? I'm going to say, sorry, Cindy, I'm not sure. Oh no, wait, that's Casey. Sorry. I don't know that I completely understand that question. Do you want to come off mute and ask it for a second?
Sure. Sorry to chime in here, but
no problem.
Everything you've done to date, and congratulations on getting the kids back to school.
Thank you.
If a student is tested or anyone at school is tested positive,
yep.
Are you doing any tracing to identify who may have come in contact with that person? And if so, is there any notification back to those people or their families?
So if I knew, let's just, imagine for a second that, we had a freshman who tested positive. We would go through that child's schedule. We would know who that child has been in contact with. We would contact all of those families and say, your child has been in contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19, we need your child to go into a period of 2 weeks of quarantine. That's what we would say. Yeah. Am I answering your question, Mr. Morton?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. And again, happily, we have not had to do that. Knock on wood. But other schools have, and that's the procedure they've followed. What's changed a little bit, with the positivity rate falling, is that it's a confirmed positive case that's going to initiate that quarantine for other people, and they've got to stay in it for 14 days. You don't get to take 2 negative COVID tests and come back to school. You're truly giving it time for that virus to take hold, right? And so we'd go through that, but you don't go into that period of quarantine just because you've got someone who's has symptoms, right? You're not presuming that symptoms necessarily tell you you've got a person who's positive. But that's why it's so important that you would know for your own family if you've come into contact with someone who's positive outside of the school community, and therefore would need to quarantine as a family. And you wouldn't have to tell us about that, because we wouldn't be taking any actions here. We wouldn't take quarantine actions given 2 degrees of separation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and,
Vinny,
yeah,
I do have one follow-up on that.
sure.
So if we have a study hall of 30 students
Yep.
and one student tests positive, all 30 of those kids will be on quarantine for 2 weeks?
Yep, they would. Yep. Exposure is defined. The exposure is defined as within 6 feet for over 15 minutes. So, I guess we could go through a really careful look at, who sat next to whom and who did this and do that. But I think what I would do in an abundance of caution is just have us quarantine. I would. I think our teachers have got the capacity to teach kids remotely if needed. And that's what I would do just to be cautious.
Okay, so one student going to 5 classes in one day is probably going to hit the entire senior class or close. So we need to make sure they don't get infected.
Yeah, and that's really a great point to make. I mean, I would say for this to work, what we're trying to do here, for this to work, we've got numbers in our favor because we're a small community. I think we have got, a social consciousness in our favor because we all care so much about the Pine School and want people to stay healthy, right? But it truly, truly, truly is the choices that families and kids make off campus that are going to be the deal makers or breakers. I feel pretty. I do. I feel confident in what we're doing on campus. So if we have someone who comes onto campus who happens to be positive, I'm not fretting that we're going to have an outbreak of 20 kids. I'm really not. I think that we have been great about washing our hands and wearing masks and keeping our distance whenever we can and eating outside and taking break. I mean, I think that we are being incredibly, incredibly mindful to welcome kids onto campus and make it as normal as we possibly can. But it's if you've got your family meeting hundreds of people off campus, it's unknown how that might affect your health. And I don't want to be an alarmist, but I think as I weigh out the costs and benefits of what I'm really hoping, I think I'm hoping that families might make choices here that are more circumspect than they might otherwise, just in support of health here at the Pine School.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really thank you all for tuning in online. I'm conscious of the time, and so want to send you on to enjoy the rest of your evenings. I'm going to stop the recording.